Mox Opal without Metalcraft. Library of Alexandria is scary though. I mean, the Library of Alexandria part of it is scary. So probably some Paradoxical deck or some Tesserator deck, but like a weird wonky draw because they don't have as many artifacts as they really want. Okay, I think Foundry Inspector just opens me up too much to a random Forcible or so countering my Inspector, and then I don't get to do anything with my turn. Here I can cast 2 spells, and if either of them gets countered, then I'm still building my board reasonably well. Yeah, like, it should be auto-tapping, because there's only one way for me to pay this, but it doesn't. I guess because I have to sack the treasure, it wants to ask for permission. That makes some sense. Come on. Come on, just play a big dino and let me steal it. Well, that's not nearly big enough for my taste, but still not worth countering. Force of Will, my Ballista, sure. So they did have a Force of Will, and only playing it in a way that I could cast 2 spells in the turn, even if they do Force of Will, made my life a lot better. Though they still get to library here every turn with the Force of Will being cast, so still in a pretty awkward position. Okay, get this Ranging Raptor out of here, end of turn. No idea why my opponent's still playing. Okay, there we go. Victory. Building towards rank on the right from starting from rank on the left. 500 gold and a Cradle of the Curse, sure. Okay, now vintage time. Focus on vintage. I think I have to move this a little bit. Wait. Yeah, there we go. So let's continue getting crushed by Library of Alexandria and Ancestral Recall, though I currently have quite the nice board position, so things aren't even looking that bad. Maybe I want to lead on Inspector, even though that opens me up to just getting mana drained or Force of Will. I guess another Force of Will they might actually stop. Stop being able to library at some point. I guess if they have Hercules Recall, I'm just super dead. I don't really have to mind that too much, because my way of winning is just build a super huge board this turn, then next turn I win. And there's not really a way for me to play around anything. Like, if I do this, they Hercules me in response, then I'm not copying anything and it just dies, but like, there's no point for me to respect that. Can cast these for x equals 2 now. So, wait, what? Oh no, I can cast them for x equals 1, but they're free. That's right. Can't cast them for x equals 2. I mean, I can cast one of them for x equals 2, but it costs me the full 2 mana. Guess that's not worth the life points invested. Yeah, this should be lethal if I don't get Hercules, and it's completely useless if I do get Hercules, so not a big difference either way. still strange that this Mox Opal is just lying around, not doing anything. You would expect a Mox Opal deck to have somewhere between 20 and 30 artifacts and always be able to activate this. Any Paradoxical Outcome deck, any Tesserator deck should, god damn it, should by now have had enough artifacts on the board. Yeah. Ancestral into Library into Hercules is pretty crushing though. I guess slow rolling this makes some sense because they didn't want to take unnecessary damage. Yeah, so. But yeah, their draw was pretty sick. Basically the dream start for any blue deck. Having both card advantage and enough disruption that you're not being run over. And my draw, okay, yeah, and Paradoxical. My draw was like low on disruption. It was just a beatdown draw that was very resilient to spot removal and pretty resilient to counter magic. Like the Force of Will didn't really disrupt me all that much, but I wasn't great at stopping unfair things from happening, and also my clock was not particularly fast, so I really had to hope they were like a Mentor, Young Pyromancer deck, or the Mirror would have been a very good matchup for my hand. But yeah, the more unfair my opponent's deck is, the worse that this type of creature draw gets, because I'm playing like an oversized limited deck or something. I don't know, I'm just beating down with vanilla creatures and they get to do their thing. Okay, so they Merchant Squad. I assume just another Paradoxical Outcome. Yeah, they get to draw another 6 here and gain mana in the process. So the only thing left to see is what kind of win condition they're going for. They can like Tinker and Tutor and all that stuff for Time Vault and Voltaic Key. They can Blightsteel me with a Time Walk out of their hand. They maybe have Tendrils or Mentor in their deck, though usually these decks no longer play Tendrils just because it's pretty irrelevant. You can just take infinite turns and then hit them with Blightsteel or something, and that is sufficient. And you can Yakmut's Will to draw his entire deck if he wants to. It's pretty unnecessary, but why not? When you have the chance to do that, why not cast 2 more Paradoxical Outcomes? They do have Tendrils, that's pretty interesting. I think Tendrils kind of went out of style because you don't really want to be forced to support double black, and also it's pretty unnecessary. Most of the time when you Paradoxical for that much, you win anyways. Okay, so no rats are coming in, and I think that's it. It does hurt my own game plan a little bit, but the idea is that when they don't get to use their artifacts, they can't really combo up with the Paradoxical Outcome, and then the rest of the deck doesn't do much. I'll keep Phyrexian Metamorphs in my deck to protect me from Blightsteel. And then I'm never certain whether I should like Spyglass for Time Vault and Sensei's Top or not. And I wouldn't be sure how to open up the spots for it. I think I'm just taking out Hangerback Walkers because my opponent's deck doesn't really run removal, and this is just very slow and just runs into Hercules Recall a bunch. Like you start growing this, maybe tap it for the ability a few times, and then they just bounce it back to your hand and all your effort is wasted. Or just start attacking with it right away, and then it's like a 2-mana 1/1 with no relevant abilities, while like Ballista and Ravager and all of those have nice relevant upsides to them still. Okay, so that's what I'm going to try. And at least I get to be on the play, which makes my deck already much more disruptive to begin with. Okay, this looks pretty nice. Can try for the turn 1 Trinisphere free win, and then if they have Forcible, I'll still get to follow it up with 2 pieces of disruption on the next turn. If they don't force, then developing their mana up to 3 for Hercules Recall is going to be pretty difficult. Okay, so Forcible pitching Paradoxical. I mean, it's not the worst exchange for me, especially because I do have follow-up disruption, but obviously I would have preferred to have resolved that. especially because the Wasteland would have made getting 2/3 mana pretty difficult, and then they can't cast their bounce spell for my Trinisphere, so they get fully locked out. Probably one. I mean, I can go either very disruptive. I think I want to put this on the board to have like a clock of my own. And then I'll just Thorn. I could like eat the Mox and then Null Rod, but I think Thorn is already disruptive enough, as they haven't put any mana artifacts onto the board yet. And it allows me one more turn of using my own Ravager, using my own Mox. Maybe. Ponder, miss your second land drop, no artifacts, that's pretty interesting. Probably they have like a Brainstorm or Preordain or something as follow-up and can't cast it through the Thorn. I think in that case I just want to put as much pressure as possible on them and keep running out creatures, though they can cast another Force of Will here and counter my Inspector. But I can be patient with these Null Rods when there's no artifact acceleration on their board at the moment, and it's still going to cost one more through the Thorn. Yeah, Force of Will again. Well, that is a little bit unfortunate, though. 2 Paradoxical's gone, 2 Force of Will's gone, and my opponent's still missing land drops at the moment. You can get in for 2. Does that make a significant difference? Because the 3 mana that I have on the board are enough to support the Null Rod being cast. Sure. Though it's a little bit awkward if I want to wasteland them and I'm now unable to. But I would be sacrificing the Mox with Null Rod on the stack regardless. Maybe that was one turn too early to do it. Damn. Because now I can't really wasteland. Yeah, that was probably stupid. Sack my Mox. I should have used it to cast Null Rod and then sacrifice it before the Null Rod resolves. Well. Regardless, let's keep going aggressive. That's the one upside of my play, is that I can be aggressive. Well, I guess I'll even run out the Foundry Inspector. They still can't cast Hurkyl's Recall until they hit their 3rd land, but there's some risk to letting them keep their Underground Sea. Yeah, I think the Mox sacrifice is kind of backfiring. Okay, no end of turn Brainstorm or Ancestral. That was nice to see, because they now had access to 2 mana. They also could have Vampiric 2 Dirt or something, and did not. I think I want to wasteland now, so that if they have Hurkyl's Recall in hand, they would want to cast it now. And then I get to use my Ancient Tomb to recast something instead of locking myself out of the game by using this before. Like if I tap this and then they Hurkyl's me, I'm in a terrible position because I don't have mana available for any kind of recast. Yeah. Still not great for me. Yeah, if I had a Mox here, that would be so insane. I just kind of screwed myself over with sacrificing that Mox. That was incredibly terrible. Because then I could tap the Mox, get it back to my hand, replay it, tap it again. Hurkyl's Recall would be a complete disaster for my opponent. Still not great for them. I'm still recasting this Thorn, I guess. And they're still like stuck on 2 lands. Their black source is gone. They didn't have anything relevant to do at their last end of turn with 2 mana. But yeah, I'm kind of giving my opponent an unnecessarily big amount of extra time that I didn't necessarily have to. Also, my life total will eventually stop me from using this Ancient Tomb. Okay, yeah, but Null Rod being resolved, wow, that's a great draw. It's still pretty amazing for me, I was gonna say, but yeah, this is also pretty amazing for me. That's always the interesting position where, like, if they have a way to destroy your Null Rod, what would you be naming? Or would you rather name an artifact or name one of the fringe other cards that they could have, but usually don't? Because I can't really think of much that could be relevant. Like, sometimes they have Jaceran's Prodigy or Deck Faden or something, but like doesn't really fit into the color scheme that we saw so far. Or you just name one of the artifacts an additional time, but then it might end up not doing anything for you. Okay, I'll not just name Jace, but I'm not certain. Most of my decisions with this Revoker are going to be useless regardless of what I name. I can't really think of any like cycling card or so that they could have in this archetype. Sometimes there's Slice and Dice or so, but not in Paradoxical, but like in the Oath decks. Okay, once again, my opponent is now capable of casting Hurkyl's Recall, so I want to attack their mana to force them into casting it, and then I get to use all of this mana to just replay my board. If they don't have it, they are just getting run over. Not that bouncing our board here would have helped them particularly much, but it was better than running into it. Yeah, they seem pretty dead. Sure. It's not actually good anymore. Just leaves them dead on board and tapped out. Well, not quite dead on board. They can still Hurkyl's Recall me here off of the 3 mana that this generates. But I can just make them cast it without activating my Mishra's Factory. Still would significantly slow me down, but really? That's pretty annoying. That is pretty annoying. Guess I do have to cast a Foundry Inspector, even though that doesn't allow me to disrupt them so much, because these two together are going to threaten lethal, and then I just follow up with Null Rod, I guess. Because now that denies them the most mana and the most combo ability, while also threatening lethal again next turn. Though they do still have access to a ton of mana now. It's pretty annoying that they Ancestral into both Tolarian Academy and Turquoise when Tolarian was the only card in their deck that could generate enough mana for them to survive on that board. They're still on 2 cards in hand and their artifacts don't do anything, so pretty crushing position regardless. Guess I should be using the Academy so that I can recast Null Rod in case they do bounce my board again, but then my Ancient Tomb starts being unusable, so would be unfortunate. think I'm likely just winning, but that was pretty strange mid-game that we had here. Chain of Vapor, wow. Oh yeah, I was well, I guess it doesn't really matter. I was considering like casting this first. I guess that maybe the mana, yeah, probably the mana floating is better than casting Thorn first, because now I can use the mana on a creature. Like recasting this. For real? Okay. I'm pretty locked out of casting spells. But they should just die to this Mishra. They're on 0 cards in hand and their artifacts are unusable. That was a pretty weird comeback by my opponent. Really? Stop. Stop. Opponent, please. Just draw like Sensei's Divining Top or something. Unreal. No, not the second Ancient Tomb. So I can go for like activate Mishra Attack into activate Mishra Attack, or I can try casting a creature, and then casting a creature allows me to cast more spells, but I think activating this twice and playing around another Force of Will is better. And they should run out of bounce spells eventually. Pretty strange game. Also maybe they draw some black cards or something, which they can currently not cast off of their mono blue mana base. Okay, so a ton of bounce spells. Interesting, interesting. Nothing I can really do to help against that. Like, I already boarded out the cards that are weak to bounce. I guess Steel Overseer is another card that is kind of weak to getting bounced when you build up a board and put a bunch of counters on it and then they just return it to your hand. Though I'm not certain if there's anything more that I would want to put in. Like Spyglasses are a reasonable way to fight the Time Vault lock, but we haven't seen my opponent aggressively tinkering or anything. They seem to be very storm oriented in their approach. Maybe they don't even have a Blightsteel. I guess you should always have a Blightsteel against workshops. Yeah, I think I'll run it back like this. Just have to hope we don't get Hurkyl's Recall into combo killed, because Hurkyl's Recall to stall is pretty easy to beat, as we saw there. Like, they bounced my board 2.5 times, and in the end they still ended up not doing anything, because with no rod on the board and their paradoxical outcomes being pitched to Force of Will and all of that, they just didn't have a proactive game plan anymore. So yeah, that is fine, but if they go Hurkyl's Recall and then do something explosive on their own turn, we might just die to that. Okay, hand looks like I have to keep it, but it is low on disruption. It's very aggressive, and at least get to Revoker them to disrupt them a little bit. But yeah, can backfire. Okay, let's see if they can counter my Lotus. I would actually be pretty happy about that, which is why I lead on it. Use these to cast Revoker so that if I name Mana Vault here and they Hurkyl's me, then I get to bounce these and tap them again for mana, so it would have worked out perfectly for me. I think I won't give any respect to Chain of Vapor, just try to copy my Revoker. I guess I can use this for blue. If I Ballista on 1, or do I want to wait on the Ballista? Yeah, I think I want to wait on the Ballista. Just keep my Black Lotus on the board and go like Ballista x equals 4 or something. So Mox Pearl. Now both of their mana artifacts are shut down. They can still just naturally make some land drops and build up to Hercules, but it kinda bottlenecks their combo potential, because Paradoxical Outcome, even though it is a strong draw engine, it's still pretty expensive to cast. So if the Mana Vault doesn't support it at all, it's going to be difficult for my opponent to get anything going, unless they do bounce my board. Well, I guess they can get whichever piece they're missing here, Tinker, Tolarian Academy, not Paradoxical, but like, yeah. So Time Vault will take key, Black Lotus, Tolarian Academy, Tinker, Hercules Recall. Those are like reasonable targets, I would say. Hello. Tolarian Academy is already pretty close to Black Lotus in its mana production potential, so it's pretty tempting for them to take, especially because it doesn't get disrupted by the Black Lotus and sticks around. I guess Ancestral is like a good thing to rebuild off of when you're on low resources and don't have a second land. Varkentia too. I tried. Hello to you, Varkentia too. So they do have Hercules potential now available to them off of Island and Mox Emerald, so that is pretty scary. Oh, I had a Mox Pearl. Well, I still would have done that, but it's a little awkward. I guess just x equals 2 is fine. Wait, 1, yeah. Because I would have to sacrifice my Lotus for another 2 counters. Is that good? That makes me more vulnerable to my board being bounced, but I guess I'm not that vulnerable to my board being bounced regardless, yeah. Okay, let's do x equals 4. I don't really feel like the Lotus is going to have much usefulness in the long game, even if it helps me play around Hercules Recall a little bit. Mishra's Workshop and these Moxen already do a pretty good job of helping me recast everything. Yeah, sure. Also, I get some extra damage in this way. But yeah, I might just die here. So how wrong was I, Varkentia? On a scale from 1 to 10, how good was that? I didn't have high hopes for my pronunciation there, but I never do in these names. I just accept the fact that I'm butchering the names and apologize every time. So let's see, this looks very Tinkerish, which could be devastating to me, though. I guess Tinker for Blightsteel, I still have Phyrexian Metamorph in my hand, and my opponent knows that I have a Phyrexian Metamorph in my hand, so either they have a bounce spell or a counter spell to go with it, or a Time Warp, I guess. Or they would have to avoid this. Oh. We got destroyed. Vampiric into Ancestral, Hercules Recall into Tinker, Time Warp. That is a lot of power and a lot of things that we couldn't really interact with. Oh, feels bad.